Rimuru and Ultima goes to One Piece, Rimuru and Ultima x One Piece, by Veldanava-God. Chapter 18. Reign of Tyranny. 15 years had passed since Rimuru and Ultima seized control of Veldori Island. The once vibrant and bustling kingdom had changed drastically under their iron-fisted rule. Fear permeated every corner of the land, from the capital city to the outermost villages. The streets were quiet, the people obedient, and the looming threat of rebellion was squashed before it could even take root. Rimuru and Ultima had solidified their positions as the uncontested rulers, and their power only grew stronger with each passing year. They sat atop their thrones in the Grand Palace, ruling with an authority that few dared to question. The throne room was vast and opulent, draped in banners bearing the symbols of Rimuru and Ultima. The atmosphere was cold, and an air of dread hung over the place, much like the rest of the island. On this particular day, the two rulers were discussing the future of their reign. 15 years, Ultima mused, lounging casually on her throne, her legs draped over one armrest. It's hard to believe it's been that long since we took this island. Feels like yesterday we were cutting down those weakling guards and taking over the palace. Rimuru sat beside her, his demeanor calm but radiating authority. Time moves quickly when you're busy consolidating power. We've built something strong here, Ultima. Something that will last. Ultima's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Yeah, we've crushed every rebellion, every uprising. No one dares oppose us anymore. It's been too easy lately, honestly. Rimuru's gaze turned contemplative. It's true. The people are too afraid to rise up against us, and even if they tried, we've trained an army capable of suppressing them. But we need to ensure they remain loyal, and fear alone isn't enough. Ultima sat up slightly, intrigued. What are you thinking? Rimuru leaned forward, his voice steady. We need to keep the military strong. Every soldier under our command must be trained to wield haki, either armament or observation. We can't afford to have weak links. Ultima grinned, her fingers tracing the armrest of her throne. I like the sound of that. An army of haki users? No one would dare to even dream of rebellion. Over the years, Rimuru and Ultima had built a formidable military force. The training regimen they imposed was brutal and unrelenting, designed to weed out the weak and elevate the strong. Their soldiers were required to master at least one type of haki, either armament or observation, in order to serve. Those who couldn't handle the training were either expelled or, more often than not, killed. At the helm of their army was their general, a powerful warrior named Gorik, a towering man with an imposing presence. Gorik had mastered all three types of haki, armament, observation, and even conqueror's haki. Though none of his haki had reached the advanced stages, his sheer mastery of the three types made him one of the most dangerous men on the island, second only to Rimuru and Ultima. One day, Gorik stood before Rimuru and Ultima in the throne room, reporting on the progress of the military training. Our forces are stronger than ever, my lord, my lady, Gorik said, his voice deep and authoritative. Nearly every soldier now wields at least one type of haki, and morale is high. Those who remain loyal are fiercely dedicated to your rule. Rimuru nodded, satisfied with the report. Good. We need to maintain that strength. The world outside our borders is becoming more dangerous, and we can't afford to be caught off guard. Ultima leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. What about the rebels? Have you crushed any signs of insurrection lately? Gorik's expression darkened slightly. There have been a few incidents. Small groups, nothing that poses a real threat. But they've been dealt with swiftly and efficiently. Rimuru's eyes sharpened. Make sure it stays that way. We've already executed thousands of rebels. If there are any left, we'll kill them all. Ultima chuckled darkly. I'm surprised there are any fools left who still think they can defy us. After everything we've done to them, I thought they'd have learned by now. Gorik bowed his head respectfully. The people are afraid, but fear can sometimes drive desperation. Those who have nothing left to lose are often the most dangerous. Rimuru considered his words for a moment. True, but desperation won't save them, not against us. The memory of the countless rebellions they had crushed over the years flickered through Rimuru and Ultima's minds. The early years of their reign had been marked by constant uprisings. Villagers, small towns, even minor nobles had attempted to resist their rule. But each rebellion had been met with overwhelming force, and every attempt to overthrow them had been brutally suppressed. The most significant rebellion had occurred 5 years into their reign. A group of former soldiers, disillusioned by the tyranny of Rimuru and Ultima, had gathered an army of thousands. They had believed that their numbers and their courage would be enough to stand against the king and queen. They had been wrong. The battle had taken place in the countryside, far from the capital. Rimuru and Ultima had personally led their forces into the fray, eager to make an example of the rebels. Rimuru had stood at the forefront of their army, his haki radiating powerfully around him. He had activated his advanced observation haki, sensing every move the enemy made before they could even execute it. Ultima had been beside him, her laughter echoing across the battlefield as she tore through the rebel forces with her advanced armament haki. The rebels had fought bravely, but they were no match for the overwhelming strength of Rimuru and Ultima. By the end of the battle, the fields had been littered with bodies, and the ground had been soaked in blood. Rimuru had personally executed the rebel leader, a former general who had once served under the previous king. He had offered the man a choice: submit to their rule or die. The rebel had chosen death, and Rimuru had granted it without hesitation. Ultima leaned back in her throne, a satisfied smirk on her face. I'll never forget the look on that rebel leader's face when he realized we were unstoppable. He really thought he could take us down. Rimuru's expression remained calm, but there was a glint of pride in his eyes. That was the moment the people truly understood who we are. Fear is the only way to control them. Gorik cleared his throat. My lord, my lady, I have ensured that no rebellion will ever gain traction again. The people are too terrified to even speak of resistance. Ultima laughed. Good. Keep it that way. If anyone so much as whispers rebellion, you know what to do. Gorik bowed again. Of course, my lady. Rimuru and Ultima's reign was one of absolute authority. They had reshaped the kingdom into a dictatorship, where their word was law and any defiance was met with swift and brutal punishment. The people lived in constant fear, knowing that their lives were at the mercy of the two rulers. As the years went on, Rimuru and Ultima continued to hone their own skills. Both had achieved mastery over all 3 types of haki: armament, observation, and conquerors. But unlike Gorik, they had pushed their haki to the advanced stages. Rimuru's armament haki had reached a point where his strikes could bypass conventional defenses entirely, shattering any opponent's armor and breaking through even the toughest materials. His observation haki allowed him to see into the future with precision, predicting his enemies' movements before they even made them. Ultima, on the other hand, had taken her conqueror's haki to an advanced level, capable of knocking out entire armies with a single wave of her willpower. Her armament haki had become so powerful that her attacks could devastate entire battlefields with a single strike. One afternoon, as they sat in the palace discussing their plans for the future, Ultima leaned over and grinned at Rimuru. You know, we've become pretty damn strong. No one in this kingdom can touch us. Hell, no one in the world could take us on. Rimuru smiled, though his expression was more thoughtful. It's true. We've achieved everything we set out to do. But we can't afford to become complacent. There's always someone stronger out there, waiting for an opportunity. Ultima scoffed. Let them come. I'll crush anyone who tries to take this from us. Over the years, the terror they had instilled in the people grew to an almost unimaginable level. Their army, trained rigorously in the ways of haki, became the most feared force on the island. Every soldier was expected to show unwavering loyalty, and any sign of hesitation was met with immediate execution. One of their most ruthless practices was the blood trials, a cruel and deadly test that all new recruits had to endure. Those who passed would earn a place in the army. Those who failed would never return. The trials were designed by Ultima herself, who took great pleasure in watching the recruits struggle and fight for survival. One day, as Rimuru and Ultima walked through the training grounds, watching their soldiers spar, Gorik approached them. My lord, my lady, he said, bowing. The blood trials have been a success. We've weeded out the weak, and the remaining soldiers are stronger than ever. Rimuru nodded in approval. Good. We need our forces to be ready for anything. Ultima smirked. I always enjoy watching the blood trials. There's something satisfying about seeing the weak fall. Gorik hesitated for a moment before speaking again. There is one matter that requires your attention. A small group of rebels has been stirring trouble in the northern territories. They're insignificant, but I thought you should know. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Deal with them. I don't care how small they are. We can't allow even the slightest hint of rebellion." Ultima grinned, her eyes flashing with malice. "Make an example of them. Kill them all." The rebel group was swiftly crushed, their leaders executed publicly as a warning to others. Rimuru and Ultima made it clear that any act of defiance, no matter how small, would be met with deadly consequences. The message was clear. The reign of Rimuru and Ultima was absolute. The people had no choice but to obey or face certain death. And so, under their iron rule, the era of terror continued. The island of Veldoria had become a kingdom of fear, where the shadow of Rimuru and Ultima loomed over every citizen, and the promise of death was always just a heartbeat away.